Hello! Guys, today we're learning about simplifying surds. Now, we established last lesson that surds make irrational numbers easy to deal with. But the other thing with that, or should I say knowing that, is that there are certain rules that we need to learn about how to manipulate numbers in their surd form. And the first of these, it's a bit of a revision, is the square root of any number squared. Remember, squared and square root, they cancel each other out, right? So if we square the square root, we get its base, right? And alternatively, if we square root a square number, then we get its base as well. And so this question A is nice and simple. It says the square root of 12. Pardon me, I wrote the wrong number and so I scribbled it out. It looks a bit dodgy. But the square root of 12 squared is going to be, that cancels that out, it's just going to equal 12. Easy. Whereas here we have one that's a little bit more complicated. Here we have negative 5 square root 2. So that's the same as saying negative 5 times square root 2. We leave out the times because we're lazy. And so that means that's the same as saying, I'll use my arrows just to point, negative 5 squared root 2 squared, which is negative 5 squared is 25 times root 2 squared is 2, and therefore 25 times 2 is 50. So here we need to remember to make sure we square all of the numbers, including the whole numbers in front of the surds. Okie dokie, sorry for the edit. Our next rule here is the square root of a product. And what we see is we see that any square root, you can actually break up into its products. In other words, in this case, we look at root 8 is the same as saying root 4 times by root 2. Alternatively, you could put a line of working out in here, which I usually leave out, 4 times 2, which equals root 4 times root 2. Now, some of you are looking at this and going, oh, I know that root 4 is actually a whole number, and therefore we can simplify this as 2 times root 2, or 2 root 2. Now, these lines of working out here and here, you're probably going to find will drop off eventually. However, I find that this line of working out is always fairly helpful just to keep you on track. And remember, line up all your equal signs and work down the page. So what about this one here? Well, this is kind of the same, except we've got a coefficient out the front, don't we? So I'm just moving my equal signs over. That's the same as saying 4 times root 9 times 5, because I know 45 is 9 times 5. And then, oh my God, we have another square number. Now, the whole point of this simplifying is to bring out the square numbers that are in the surds. We want to simplify the surds as best as we can. We want to try to make that surd the smallest number that it can be. And so, I know that if I make this 9 times 5, 4 times root 9 times root 5, which is 4 times 3 times root 5, which is 12 root 5. And I find this a really easy way of actually doing these. I don't actually have to think about my steps. I know they take up a lot of time and eventually you start skipping them, but for you guys now, I would expect for you guys to be writing them out like this. Now I'm a little bit embarrassed that I actually had to just double check. But here, if we're going to pull apart this surd, in other words, make it its products, one of the products has to be a square number, because if it's not, it won't simplify into a whole number. But what can we pull this apart? What number can we pull this apart? What are the factors of 288? What are the square factors? Now, if you don't know, just grab your calculator and just enter in. You start off at 4 and then go to 9 and then go to 16 and so forth. In this case, though, it does stick out a little bit after you see it. is that this is the square root of 144 times by 2 over 3, which is the same as saying root 144 times root 2 over 3, which is 12 root 2 over 3. Are we finished? No, because we can simplify, man. 12 is just going to be right up here. 12 is just 4 times 3 root 2 over 3. Hopefully by now you can pull apart your factors and you see cancel, cancel, 4 root 2. A much nicer way of writing that. That's kind of where we're at now. Boom!